There was a third grade teacher who was trying to describe to her children the arrest, the passion, and death of Jesus on the cross. And then she asked what she thought, I'm sure, was a straightforward question. She said, "Class, what were Jesus' last words from the cross?" Since I said that it seemed like a straightforward question, you now know that there was a trick to this question. I don't think she actually understood that, but let me explain. The answer is, it depends. It depends on which gospel you're reading. If it's Mark and Matthew, they have him recite Psalm 22. My God, why have you forsaken me?" If you read Luke, like we did on Palm Sunday, it's "Into your hands I commend my spirit," which is from Psalm 31, which, by the way, was night prayer in Jesus' time. They read Psalm 31 before going to sleep. And if you read John, like we did on Good Friday, you find out "It is finished," which were the words of the high priest once he sacrificed the last lamb to be used at the Passover meal. It is finished. But anyway, she asked the question, and one little boy started waving his hands frantically. And she said, "Well, Johnny, you think you know what the answer is?" And she said, "Yes, ma'am, I do." "Well, what is it, Johnny?" He said, "I'll be back." Now you all laugh, and that's an unintended laugh because you all hear that with an Austrian accent when you do it. "I'll be back." Okay? That's not what the kid meant. Now, there's no notation in any of those passion stories that that was the last words of Jesus from the cross. But when you think about it, little Johnny had a very good insight into this. Because throughout his public ministry, Jesus kind of said that from time to time. In fact, 3 times he predicted his own suffering, death, and resurrection. And somehow or another, those predictions must have made their way back to the Jewish religious authorities. Because remember, they went to Pilate and said, "Hey, put a guard on this tomb, because he said he's going to rise from the dead, and they'll come and steal his body and then claim he rose." And so Pilate did that. The apostles to whom Jesus gave the prediction, well, they were out in left field without a glove. This idea of rising from the dead, they didn't know what it meant. And beside that, when they heard the words of the women that Easter morning, that there was an empty tomb, they were dumbfounded. They thought resurrection was ridiculous. They didn't want to believe. The empty tomb. Did you ever think about it that perhaps no one actually witnessed the resurrection of Jesus? The guards were there. Perhaps they were the only ones who did. But we're told that there were earthquakes and flashes of lightning and everything else going on. And chances are they probably didn't know what in the world was happening. Stone rolled back and an empty tomb. Empty tomb. Archaeologists, more and more, are coming to the conclusion that the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem is over the actual burial place of Jesus. See, from very earliest times, Christians thought of it as a sacred place and went to pray there. Hadrian, who conquered Jerusalem and later became the Roman emperor, built a temple on the spot. You know, very often when one people conquer another people, they take their sacred spaces and build their own sacred spaces on top of it. And he built a temple to the goddess Aphrodite on that spot. Then there's the Emperor Constantine, who through his mother, St. Helena, built the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. So there's some authenticity that this church is actually built on Jesus' burial spot, and there are no bones left there. But the fact that there's an empty tomb, does it prove the resurrection? No. How do we know the truth of the resurrection? We know it because of our faith. The Holy Spirit has infused faith within us. And we also believe it because of the testimony of those first witnesses who saw the risen Jesus in the flesh. They had no reason to lie about this. There was no material gain from making up this story. In fact, it was just the opposite. They could lose everything, including their own life. Now, we have a saying in English that seeing is believing, don't we? Next week, we'll hear a gospel story that's based on this idea of seeing is believing. We'll not only have one resurrection appearance, but two. Thomas will be at one and not at the other. And he says, unless I see and do, I will not believe. We believe because of our faith. We come here today because we believe in the resurrection. It's the core of our religion. Resurrection is not like some dogma we have in this bag called faith that we pull out at this time of the year. Resurrection is meant to be a way of life. If we really believe with all our heart that Jesus rose from the dead, everything has to change. The way we think, the way we speak, the way we act. If we really believe that Jesus rose from the dead, shouldn't we be kinder? Shouldn't we be more understanding? Shouldn't we be more forgiving? Shouldn't we be more willing to help those in need? If we truly believe that Jesus rose from the dead. And every year on Easter, we reaffirm that. Now, in Old Testament times, every year, the people got together and the leader read from the book of the covenant what they were meant to believe in. And he sprinkled them with the blood of a sacrificed animal. Every year, you and me come together on Easter Sunday and we renew our baptismal promises. And instead of being sprinkled with blood, we're sprinkled with the holy water that was blessed and consecrated last night at the Easter Vigil in anticipation of the baptism of our catechumen who was in our RCIA. This is our faith. This is what we believe. This is what we profess. But it's not just enough to profess it with our lips. We need to live it in our lives. St. Anne's has a wonderful tool to use. You see, if we really believe that Jesus rose from the dead, we'll want to spend more time with him, won't we? We'll want to pray more. We'll want to come to Mass more. We'll want to celebrate the sacraments more. And we're going to want to learn more and more about what our faith is really all about. And we have this platform, this software program called Formed. And we've been trying to get our people to register on Formed for about the last 6 months. We did a big push at Christmas, and guess what? We're doing a big push at Easter as well. Take home a bulletin. There's a code down there that you can enter. It won't charge you anything. It won't cost you a cent. Just your time. And register. The last registration that I heard was we were up to about 481 families registered, but we have over 1,500 families in this parish. We want everybody to be registered. Everything you would ever want to know about the Catholic faith is all in one place. What a blessing God gives us, that we can learn more and more about what we profess, what we're about to renew on our baptismal promises, that faith in the risen Lord. Let the risen Lord take over your hearts so that you can act in your lives more like him, because he indeed makes all things new. And as the Brits would say at the end of the day, Christ is risen. He's risen indeed. Hallelujah.